I'm really here today because a long time ago I fell in love with tractors. And I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. But my grandparents, all my uncles and stuff lived on farms. And so that's how I got acquainted with them. And you know, it started really young with me. I'm sure all you guys too. I'm sure why everybody's here today. Their love of tractors. And so when I got older, we finally did move to the farm. And when I was about 10, so that really fueled everything I loved about them. And just like any love relationship, it got strained. I needed some counseling, some help. So I went to trade school when I got out of high school and learned about tractors and stuff. And I worked for a Case IH dealer at that time for a couple years, but that was in the 80s, so things got slow and I got laid off. And I was fortunate enough to get a job with a guy named Eddie Hopp, and he had a fuel injection shop, and he taught me pretty much everything I knew about working on pumps and turbos and stuff. So I had a lot of good mentors through the years. So I would like to keep this like I like a lady's skirt, long enough to cover the subject, but short enough to keep it interesting. So the first thing I want to talk about is diesel fuel. Diesel fuel does not last forever. A lot of guys that I meet apparently think it does. A lot of the problems I see with collector tractors anymore is because they sat with old diesel fuel in it. And I talked to my fuel guy. He said that diesel fuel, today's diesel fuel, is good for about a year. And it's about 6 months old when you get it. So you don't have a whole lot of time. I say to put a fuel conditioner in it, Howells or something like that. You know, there's a lot of brands on the market. They all work pretty good. So, and keep your fuel fresh. I have a lot of customers that kind of argue with me about that. This 20-year-old fuel was better. Well, it was better 20 years ago, yeah, but it's not any good anymore. I've seen some pretty bad deals. And it kind of behooves me where a guy would spend all that money, overhaul his tractor, do his fuel pump, and then it has 20-year-old fuel in it, and he lets it sit for 6 months, and it doesn't work anymore. So that's a big thing. That's why a lot of people come and see me. So keep it fresh and keep it clean. And I don't know if any of you guys got on the biodiesel train when it first came out. Man, I thought that stuff was great. I even put it in some of my tractors. But after they set for a while, boy, things didn't run anymore. So I did find that Howells will eat that stuff out of there if it's not stuck too bad. Howells fuel conditioner will work in that. But I don't recommend biodiesel for a tractor that's going to sit in the shed for a long period of time. Diesel engines. They're what they call compression ignition. So your tractor has to have good compression to start. A lot of times, you know, you get a tractor that's hard starting. If you got smoke when you're cranking her over, that means you're getting fuel, but maybe you don't have the compression, or maybe your timing isn't sweat quite right either. So that's another issue to work on. Timing is is very important to the diesel tractors. And you got to be careful when you time them too. On the 66 series, they got a rubber mounted dampener. If you try to time it off of that, they like to slip sometimes, and then you're not timing it to what you think you are. So you guy needs to use a flywheel when you can. And some of the dampener pulleys have 2 marks on them, and if they're out of register, then you know that your dampener pulley has slipped and your timing marks are no good anymore. Your timing can also cause smoking problems. White smoke at an idle. You got 3 kinds of smoke. You got your blue smoke, that's oil consumption. You got your white smoke, that's your timing isn't quite right. And your black smoke, does everybody know what that's about? Yeah. Too much fuel. Now I know a lot of you guys like to work in the shade. Some of you don't, a lot of you like to work in the shade. But on a tractor with no turbo, if you set it up too much, you know, you're just hurting yourself as far as power goes. About 10%, and after that, you're just kind of wasting it. Unless you got a turbo, then you can realize the advantages of all that black smoke. I don't know if any of you guys have ever put a pump on a 66 series. Them are tricky. You can have them 180 degrees at a time, and that's very frustrating. And they will start with ether, and they will run, but they will not start without ether. That's a good way to know that you're 180 degrees at a time. I've had this happen on many occasions with the customer who put a pump on. A lot of times people like to just take the pump off. You should time it before you take it off of there. Line up the marks with the flywheel, marks on the pump. But a model 100 pump on them, you can't tell if you're on number 1 or number 6 unless you take the side cover off of the pump and look in there for the lines, or if you take the valve cover off and look into there. So that's another frustrating thing. That's the way it works though with love, doesn't it? It can be frustrating sometimes. A lot of times when you love your tractor, it just frustrates you back. Another thing to touch on with the hard starting is cranking speed. Most diesel engines crank at 150 RPMs, that's the minimum. So the faster it cranks, the more it heats that air, and when you spray your diesel fuel in there, it's going to start better. And I fixed a lot of them with new battery cables or a new starter. I have a 460 diesel at home, completely overhauled it, used it on a loader tractor for years, and I just noticed it just wasn't starting as good as it used to. Then it got cold, and it really wouldn't start. Checked the battery, checked the cables. I sent the starter in, and I thought it sounds like it's cranking fast enough. Well, I have a little electronic tag that you put a piece of magnetic tape on a crankshaft pulley and crank it over. Had one of the kids crank it over. It would only crank at 100 RPM. That 50 RPMs was enough to make that thing not want to start. Even plugged in, and even with good glow plugs. Glow plugs are another important thing if you like 560s and 460s. I'm kind of a 560 lover. My grandpa had a 560 diesel, so I love them things. Against a lot of people's better judgment. I have 2 of them right now, so I'm pretty good at putting head gaskets in once in a while. The 560s don't want to start if they have a bad glow plug or 2, and it usually only takes about 1. And they're easy to check. You get a test light, hook one end to the hot wire on the battery, take the wire off of the glow plug. If you put it on the terminal, and it lights up, that means it's grounded, that means it's good. You don't have to take it out or anything. And that's how you check any of the glow plugs on the international harvester tractors. Another thing with the cranking speed, all the pumps that International use have a charge pump inside. Even the old cast iron pumps on the M diesels and stuff. Of course, they start on gas, so they're going to start if your points are good. But the faster that motor cranks, the more pressure that transfer pressure can build, and the better your tractor is going to start. So that's cranking speed is a big thing. Usually when your injection pump is bad, they won't start when they're hot. They might start when they're cold. Everything, when it gets hot, expands, the diesel fuel gets thinner, and it'll take the least path of resistance. So it'll leak past the scored parts, and it won't go up to the injectors. Injectors are tough on the pump. So it wants to go on the leak past the resistance. Talk a little bit about the smoke stuff. The black smoke, if you guys got turbos, it's a good thing to check the turbo. Little in play is okay, just a little, a few thousandths, up and down is a little bit, but if it goes clunk, clunk, your time for your turbo is over. And they can be replaced and fixed. We fixed the solar turbos, we fixed the old T606 turbos on the 560s, and we service all the new ones too, so that's not really a problem anymore. That will make them smoke. It'll make the engine heat up too, if you're lugging it. I used to be in Ed, when I worked for Ed, we pulled tractors for 7 years together. And that time we built 3 different pulling tractors. And we pulled with the Tri-State Pulling Association, we pulled with the Nebraska Bush Pullers, and we pulled in the end with the NTPA, or the Iowa Tractor Pulling Association. And Ed is the guy that kind of started the super farm class. And that was a fun time in my life. That was a lot of fun, pulling tractors. It's a lot of work though, and you don't really get a summer. But if you like fairs, man, that's a place, that's the thing to do. You get to go to every county fair in the tri-state area. We learned a lot of stuff on that. When taking the front cover off and trying to time an engine, you got marks on your crank pulley, the cam idler, the camshaft, the pump drive gear. They've all got different marks. You can line them all up. You have to turn that engine 36 times before they all line up again. Because the cam turns half the speed of the engine. Most of the pumps turn half the speed of the engine, except for the Model 100 on the 400 series. So it can get confusing, which love often does get confusing, doesn't it? When you love them tractors. So I love tractors, but I also fell in love and got married. And I have 4 girls that help me on the farm. They're learning about tractors too. That gets a little confusing sometimes also. Has anybody got any questions about timing or hard starting? Yeah.
For a diesel engine that's 40 years old, are you concerned about electricity with low sulfur diesel fuel?
No. He wants to know about using low sulfur fuel. The sulfur in diesel fuel, it was kind of like a preservative. That's one of the reasons why, and it is a lubricant also. But the fuel companies put enough lubricant in there to get by. They're not going to sell you junk fuel and then them have to buy you a pump all the time too. Now I do like to put stuff in the fuel, either Howes or, there's a lot of different brand name things, but yeah, that low sulfur diesel it'll work just fine in there. A lot of guys used to put automatic transmission fluid in it before everybody got in the diesel fuel additive game, and two-stroke motor oil was used a lot back in the old days too. Any other questions? Yeah.
12 years ago, it was low sulfur diesel, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long would that last?
I'm not sure.
You're not gonna say?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But the ultra low sulfur fuel doesn't last as long.
Yeah,
And like if you get number one diesel fuel for in the wintertime, with the ultra low sulfur, it will gel up on you. So you still have to run an anti-gel in that.
12 years ago, I parked a diesel tractor in the shed, and I always put Howes in my big tank.
Yeah.
Last summer, I decided I better get that thing out and get it running. A friend of mine came over, started galloping, and it runs perfect. And I think it was the Howes that helped me there.
Yeah, I think so. I have some friends that live in Kansas, and they swear that old fuel is good fuel, and they've had tractors set for 10, 15 years, and they'll start.
Okay.
I have a neighbor, he's into red tractors. I think he's not here today. I don't see him anywhere. He's into red tractors, but they got yellow wheels. And he called me because he had a 44 that had been setting for 20 years. He bought it years ago, and he had heard that they could have trouble, so he wanted me to come over there to look at it before he tried to start it. So I went over there, and it was stuck. And I didn't want to take it off, and so I said, you know what, I'll mix up some magic potion and put in there. So I mixed some Howes and penetrating oil, and I went over there and took the lines off the head of the pump and flushed all this fluid through there, and I said, I'll see you next week. I didn't think it was going to work. I went back next week, sure enough, I put my screwdriver in there, and man, that thing was nice and free, and I said, well, there you go. I took the lid off the fuel tank, and there was probably about that much fuel in there. Oh, it smelled like varnish. I said, Jack, we need to drain this fuel out of here and get rid of it. He looked in there with his flashlight. He goes, well, it's still red. I said, yeah, but smell it. It smells like varnish. He goes, oh, that older fuel is always better. And I said, yeah, it was better back then, but it's not that good anymore. And I said, once it smells like varnish, it's gone. He goes, oh, I think I'm going to try it. I said, I wouldn't try it. And in the meantime, he had another 44 Massey pump he gave me. He wanted you to redo this one. So I took that and redid it. He took his tractor and had it all painted up. And this spring, I seen his tractor sitting on the yard, but the pump wasn't painted anymore. He had to put that other new one, that other one I rebuilt for him, was on it now. And I went back, and I stopped in, I said, what's the deal here? He said, yeah, I think that diesel fuel is bad. And to go back a little bit, the day we were there, he didn't want to get rid of that old diesel fuel. I said, well, you know what? Let's just drain it out. Let's put it in your new pickup. No, I don't want to do that. So that's a pretty good sign. If you don't want to drain it out and put it in your new pickup or your newer tractor or something, that's a pretty good sign that maybe you should use it for the burn pile. yet. It's a pretty good indication that it should be used for something else. But that's happened quite a few times. And for $10, $15 worth of diesel fuel, it could have saved himself a lot of money. And he hasn't brought me the other pump back to fix, so I don't know what's going on with that one yet.
He's hoping you'll forget about it being dirty fuel then.
Yeah. Well, I'm part German, so I won't forget about that. See if I can tell you any other horror stories we run into.
You ever have a Model A100, one bad injector and pulling tractor receives the head in it?
Yes,
Yeah.
many times.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't like that. I don't like that scenario. Started on the trailer, loaded on the trailer, went to the
Yep.
pole, wouldn't start coming off the trailer.
The Model 100 heads with the pulling tractors did not last very good. That's why everybody went to the inline
12
pumps.
years, 13 millimeter.
You had a 13 millimeter for 12 years? You did really good.
650 horsepower, flywheel. No water. Did a good job. It was a good pump.
Yeah.
Indiana gold.
That one lasted for a long time.
Oh, it did a good job.
We have had them not even last on the test stand. That makes a lot of noise. I've had quite a few employees in my time. I started in '87 with Ed. He passed away from cancer in '97, and I started my own. So I've been on my own for 20 years. And I had a guy that worked for me who was kind of a nervous guy. And I taught him how to rebuild a Ruse-Master pump. And we had an old test stand that had a fiber coupler that drove it. Well, once in a while the couplers would break. And when they break, they really make a lot of noise and rattle. And we just had a little, probably 10 by 10 test stand room. And that guy hit the wall 2 times before he got the door open, and he ran clear out the shop. And I have to go shut off the test stand. So that gets a little nerve-wracking. A lot of you guys got the old cast iron pumps yet here? I love them things. You go in a Napa store, say, hey, I need some points and plugs for an M diesel tractor. They look at you like, what the hell? I just love doing that to guys. Or people that are unfamiliar with them, you see one at a show. My dad, he didn't know about the M diesels. I took him to a show one time and I said, look at this, distributor and all this stuff, we're going to the other side, diesel pump. It's just a unique tractor. And when I was learning how to do stuff, I was the guy that always wanted to learn how to do the old ones. I don't know why I was always drawn to that. I didn't like the ones with the wires sticking out of them. So I always learned how to do the old ones. And we would never work on tractors in the house, so Ed would line me up, hey, this guy needs somebody to take his pump off, bring it in here so we can fix it. So I did a lot of that stuff. And I did a lot of, you guys remember the old 6.2 Chevy pickups? Oh, they were, and I was a pump kid.
A waste of V8 engine, that's what that was.
I would go anywhere after work and take a guy's pump off. I'd take a rebuilt one with me, go there. 4 hours later, he'd have his pump on there, and I'd make a couple $100 in cash. But you learn a lot of things that way. Like when you drop a bolt, where it would go inside of the bottom of the bumper. That was a good one. I looked for about a half hour for that one. But we don't have pumps on pickups anymore. We got the common rail. How's everybody like them? You like that?
I like it.
Okay. You haven't fixed her yet.
Yeah.
Expensive to fix.
Yep, they are. But everything is, you know. They had to make them newer, and better. That's what we're about. Has anybody got any other questions on anything? Or?
What's the longest you ever had a Rosemaster pump run that you know of?
20 years.
How many hours?
I don't know about the hours.
50.
I just had a guy in the shop the other day, and he said, I had this pump rebuilt at Ed's shop right before he passed away. That was exactly 20 years ago in February. And I don't know if you're all familiar, the Rosemaster pump has a little neoprene flex ring in there. And them little devils, that's 9 times out of 10, that's your problem. It breaks up. You take the little side window off, it looks like you got chewing tobacco in there. And what happens is all that little chewing tobacco goes up in the return line and it plugs it off. And them pumps will not run if they build too much pressure in the housing. So there you sit. It'll die. It'll start up and run for sometimes a minute until it builds enough pressure, or it'll start up and run and blow the drive shaft seals out. And then it'll run until diesel fuel comes out of the breather pipe. So I've had one of them last for 20 years, which I thought was pretty good. But I've also seen them come back in 5 years, where the flex ring was totally gone, chewing tobacco.
That'd be like the pump on an 806 or
Yep, all the Rosemaster
1256
pumps.
or any of those.
Yep. Yep. So 20 years. Now they make a steel, what they call an EID weight retainer. It's all steel. So you can put one of them in there for like $80 and you won't ever have that trouble again. But there's other trouble, so. Yes.
I'm not a deer man, whatever, but we were supposed to pick up a tractor at Meekham's auction. It was a 46 series something. It just done what you said. The thing would start and then it just slowly go down and die.
Yep.
Sunday afternoon, nobody around, called the mechanic buddy at his farm shop. I said, what the hell can we do with this thing without getting you rousted out of home? He said, go get 10 gallons of diesel and dump in the tank. We dumped 10 gallons of diesel in it, and that thing ran, and nothing wrong. Something about a return line problem.
Yeah, it plugs up that return, builds too much pressure in the pump, but I don't know why adding that fuel in there made it run.
Well, it brought the level up above the thing so it wouldn't have to have, I don't know, whatever. That's John Deere stuff.
But most of the time, them pumps have a little return fitting on the top of them has a spring and a glass ball in there. And all that stuff will get stuck in there. Well, the trick is to get them back to the yard is you take a little punch, or whatever in the toolbox, a nail, a hammer, nail and the pliers, anything you can smash your finger with. And you punch that out of there and put her back together, run it up to the house, have somebody work on it. Or you can just leave it like that, and there's 3 little rivets with that neoprene governor ring hooks on. If you run it long enough, it'll bust them off of there, and then it usually gets in there and seizes the head and rotor. And I don't know if anybody's ever had a Rosemaster pump seize the head and rotor, but that is, the seizing of the head and rotor is just really a symptom of some other problem. Bad diesel fuel. You're smiling, I bet you got a story.
That's because it was way too big. When you tried pushing a lot more fuel than what it would take.
Yeah.
You did a lot of damage inside.
A lot of times a plugged injector will do it. Have you ever had one of your fuel lines break? Handy with the torch. Take her off of there. Brazier. Put a little more on there. Looks better. Fills that inside hole, and they will not tolerate that pressure barrel shapes that head and seizes the head and rotor, breaks the drive shaft. And the bad part is when a guy just comes in, he wants an exchange pump and buys a drive shaft somewhere else and he puts it on there, and then I couldn't even get it started and it broke the drive shaft again. That's because we didn't fix the problem, we just fixed the symptom. So troubleshooting is a big thing. And the biggest thing is get a book. There's a lot of info in there. Or call somebody you know. That calling people works really good. I got some cards on me, you guys can call me. Advice is always free. I want to tell a story about my nephew. My brother has a New Holland round baler, and it's got these fingers that poke the hay up in there. They run on an eccentric. And there's two of them. Well, when I borrowed it one day, the one side broke, and I called my friends at Titan Machinery. I said, hey, do they both go together or are they offset? Oh, they're offset. So I just welded it back together. Told my brother about it. He ordered some new parts, and it broke again. So my nephew, I guess he must like me because he went to trade school. Now he's working at a Case IH dealer. And my nephew, it broke on him. He pulls her up to the shop and he takes a look at things, welds her so they're together. About an hour later, my brother called me. He goes, and that thing broke on the baler again, and Nate welded it. I said, well, did he weld them together? They're supposed to be offset. They're on an eccentric. He said, I don't know. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come over there and take a look at it. So they started her up, and man, that thing would jump about 4 inches off the ground after they got wound up. So I said to him, Nate, I said, did you ever think about calling somebody and asking them, you know, how you should weld that on there? No, I didn't think about that. So it's good to call people and ask them. Okay, any more questions? Yeah. Yep, we still work on them. Parts are kind of hard to come by. You can get most of the gaskets yet. We do have stuff made for them. Over the years, I like that old stuff. Everybody wanted to take them off and put a Roost-Master pump on there, so we would always offer them X amount of dollars if they brought the old Roost-Master in. So I've been collecting them for about 30 years and saving them for parts and stuff. So they're fixable. We have parts for them. And you know, International is one of the only companies that ever made their own injection pump, which is pretty remarkable. Must have had a wide reach, you know. Nobody else made their own injection pumps. They also, I think, use just about everybody's injection pump too. Bosch, Standardized, American Bosch. They just about used them all. Any more questions? Yeah.
How do you fix the primary pump in a BD40 injection pump?
How do you fix it? Well, just take it apart, put all new parts in there.
No part.
Can't find any parts for it.
That's that one's got that 5-pound governor in. Whenever it goes, it takes everything.
Yeah. Can't get any, I don't have any parts for them either, so. If you get on the internet, you might be able to find some, but. I've only worked on 2 of them in my life, so. The gear pump, some of the stuff out of a cast iron pump might work. I know the gears are kind of similar. I don't know if they're taller or the guy might be able to machine them off and use them. Have you had yours apart? Do you know what's wrong with it, or?
We got ours to go. I took and bored the pump walls out and put a Cummins pump in it, rotor in it. hill on the bottom end, so it tilts.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about on model 100 on the Governor?
Model 100 on a Governor. Them have a slip clutch in them. So what usually happens is that slip clutch goes bad, and then pretty soon you don't have any control over how fast you want to go.
Like mowing hay last week, got the heart full, and all of a sudden she took off.
Yep. Yep, so it's time to,
Back off and run about 1,800, 1,900. Bring her off, and all of a sudden she'll take off.
Yeah.
And that slip clutch over.
yep, that slip clutch is bad, and they don't fix themselves, so.
It don't get no better.
No, can't pour any howls in that one and fix it. Any other questions? Yeah,
Go ahead, Eric.
To say on the old 806 that came with the RD pump,
yep.
you take that off and put on a Rosemaster pump, and the tractor will smoke a lot more. Why was that?
Well, they do have a little bit different rate of injection, and, you know, you had to time them different too. And, you know, it depends where you got the pump and who did it. It could have been turned up, or the fuel could have been turned up. Now, a lot of the guys that I talked to that haven't RD yet, or had them with an RD, said that they always started better.
Oh, that was a tremendous pump, but it worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I have some friends that were at a dealer the other day, and they had 4 of them sitting under a bench somewhere, and he bought them all. And one of them had a broken spring in it, was the only problem. The other one had 2 broken springs in it. And them pumps, he said, had been sitting there from the 70s, and they were not stuck. They still rotated. They were had that good old diesel fuel in them.
Yep.
They were sitting in a nice air-conditioned and heated building probably.
Real clean shop under.
Nice clean shop under the bench, you bet. Yeah, did you have a question?
Yeah, the 650, like 650 diesel, them injectors like pop off like 750 is
Yep.
right around there.
Yep.
The tips in them that get, I see a guy at our shop, you know, pop them off, his dad worked for International back in the year. They can machine a new tip, I think now for them, because they're kind of hard to find parts. I think that's what you guys do, machine the tip on, but
Yep.
it's fan out, right?
Yeah, relap them, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's expensive. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of them tested, it just kind of streams some fuel in there. You would not imagine that would ever run like
I
that.
know, it runs good though.
They had it figured out, it runs. Yeah, them injectors only open up at 750.
Yeah.
Talking from 1935 up to when you got into the 560s.
Yeah.
On the internationals, them open up at, the older ones, with the big nut, they open up at 1500 PSI. The newer ones open up at 1100. And when you got to the 806, 1206, them open up at 2400.
I say they started pumping the pressure.
The 66 series, them all open up at 3600 PSI. And now your common rail injection pumps are 15,000. There's a lot of difference there. Burn and all that fuel.
Talk about that old elder injector, we got to work. Machine hole and stop the injector out of thread. Puts 6 injectors in.
Yeah,
Screw in there. Makes a problem out of it.
does it now?
They work. Pony tractor, running on the 282. Keep the pressure on up there. Run the headline pump on.
Yeah. There must have been a ton of them old gas start bulldozers out in California. I had a guy from California call me one time, and he had a TD14, that's a 4-cylinder.
400.
And he was gonna send me 3 injectors, and then he needed another one. And I said, well, you know, he said, you know, it ran, but it was kind of missing and stuff. I want to send you these. And I said, well, why don't you just send me all 4 of them? They're kind of hard to come by. He goes, well, He says, I couldn't get one apart, I couldn't get it out. So I put the rest of them back in there. I took the bolts out of that one that wouldn't start. And I started it up and ran it for a while. He said, oh, by the way, I need a line too. He said he flew out of the motor and over the barn and he never could find it. So it's just like he wasn't standing there watching it. Yeah.
Little heat
Yeah.
to it.
Any other questions? Or? I guess we could talk about ejectors. The easiest way to find a bad injector is have the tractor running and just go through and crack one at a time and see if you can get the mist to go away. The International used what they call armido ferrule on the line. And a lot of times if you loosen up the nut, that ferrule will be stuck down in the injector. So unless you bang on the line a little bit and get it popped up out of there, it won't. I have a lot of guys tell me, well, I can't get nothing out of this one. And that line will have been stuck in there, and that was the problem. But that is the best way to check, go through and see which one is missing. A lot of times you can catch them that way. Or if you got a heat gun, put it on a manifold. That works good too. Any more questions or got any requests? I know some songs. No, I'm just kidding.
Still building a 13 millimeter.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Once in a great while. Nobody likes it when they seize. It's a tractor pulling. A lot of guys, they went to the inline stuff. The only place the 13's used anymore is in the stock class.
Yeah.
That's
Western Pennsylvania.
That's
Stock.
yeah.
Yep.
Look stock.
Fire up the pipe. It's
Yeah.
stock.
Yeah, look stock.
14 mile an hour. It's still stock. 3,000 RPM. Yeah. Still fun to pull.
That tractor pulling is fun. It's expensive. It's really not any different than having a boat. Every time you take that out, it costs you money. So it's not really any different. You get a little dirtier tractor pulling.
A big boat.
2 great days.
I don't know, Sam, what would you rather do? Tractor pull or go boating? Oh, now you're just kidding me. She said tractor pulling. Could be. She likes to go boating too.
She wants a ride home.
There you go. Any more questions?
You gotta talk to Daddy and build your tractor.
What's that?
You should have talked to him to build a tractor for him, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. I guess we haven't really talked about the cast iron pumps on the M diesels and 400s. I started working on them a long time ago. I thought they were kind of a marvel of engineering. Has anybody ever taken the plates and stuff out of there? Man, that guy, all them little leaf springs and cams and keys. I mean, that's pretty good.
Don't know how they ever worked.
It takes a while to figure it out. There's some good books out there that
Plunger in the end. It's got that fine brass. I
The
call it
screen
like
in
filter
there.
screen.
Yep.
Whatever. Had an M diesel, it'd start running fine on gas. We couldn't get it to run diesel. Pulled that plunger out, had it put together backwards. Oh, yeah, put it back there, right, dropped it back in, fired right out. Amazing.
So International made 3 different types of, I'll call it the cast iron pump. The first one is what we call the prior to A pump. It was on the 30s, or not the 30s, the 40 M's and stuff. And then they made the A pump, and that one is on your M's, super M's. Then you got the B model pump, and that's the one with the IH insignia on the side, casting on the side of it. That was only used on the 400s and 450s. They're all three a little bit different. The A and prior to A, they're pretty close. A lot of parts interchange, but the B model is different. That one has O-rings on the little tappets. Where your 4 lines come out of the top of the pump, there's a fuel distributor block. Underneath of that is a little cam with 4 little tappets. And the A pumps in the prior to A, they had a chamber in there. Any of the leakage that would come out of that fuel distributor block would go over to the plunger area, and then that would get drained off and go into the scavenger valve, which gets pumped back to the fuel tank on the return. The A model has 3 ports on the little transfer pump, and they pump the return back to the tank. The B model only has 2 ports on the transfer pump, and the return comes out of the top of the plunger and just kind of self-feeds back to it. And then they have a little drip line out of the bottom. Any of that leakage out of the tappets and the plunger drips out on the ground. Why they did that, I'll never know. But that's...
EPA wouldn't like it.
No, the EPA would not like that anymore. It's not really OSHA approved, probably.
So is that why the side of the block is always dirty on them 400s and 450s?
Yeah, probably. Be part of it anyway. You know, and they always drip a little bit, but you know, if they drip and run out of there, then you either have to replace the plunger or maybe something's wrong with the fuel delivery block. The B model pumps have O-rings on them, 4 little tappets, and so that's another way. Everybody gets dilution in there. Them pumps, that was their favorite thing. Get fuel in the pump, so it can come through the seal and the...
All right, that's where my next question was, where was the fuel getting by, that seal?
You can do it on the seal of the supply pump.
Right.
Usually when it does that, it fills up the pump pretty fast. I've had them to where it shoots it out of the oil filter.
Yeah.
You change the oil in about 2 minutes, it's just gushing out of there. But if it gets in there slow, it's probably a scavenger valve or them O-rings on the tappets, but them tappets are about the last thing that can come out of that pump. The tappets and that throttle shaft seal, where your throttle hooks on, that's about the last thing you can get out of the pump. You have to take everything out of it before you can get that out, so.
Just go through the whole thing.
Yeah, you pretty much have to do the whole thing if that's leaking. On the 400 or 407, 361 engines, the Ruse Master pump has a little housing ahead of it, and that housing has the drive shaft seals in it. Them pumps don't have their little umbrella seals. If any of you ever put a Ruse Master pump on and had to fight them little umbrella seals, you like them 407s, but we've had a lot of trouble with lately, them drive shaft seals on the 361s and the 407 motors going out, and wouldn't believe, but I had a guy put 2 umbrella seals on the drive shaft and shoved the pump in there, and it didn't work very good. There was so much pressure in there, it pried the pilot tube apart and spun it in the housing, and it really wrecked a lot of stuff. I wish you would have looked in the book, but we make a kit that comes with the seals and the O-ring and stuff that you can just take the pump off and put them 2 seals in there and replace all that stuff. Anybody got any more questions? Or? No cast iron questions? Losing light. talked about turbos a little bit. We still fix the solar turbos. I think I said that before. We make parts for them, and the air research turbos. Did you ever use one of them tractor pulling? No?
Schweitzer 3OM, that's what we was limited to for size, or S2. I like the S2.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the air research ones go out the pipe.
Oh, yeah. We had made them go out the pipe, we used to have to put cross bolts in our exhaust. And
Yeah.
big pieces and chunks flying.
Yeah.
What problems do you find on like newer tractors? What's the main thing there?
Newer tractors, tons of hours, diesel fuel. The Magnum tractors, you see a lot of them, you know, they're getting on quite a bit of age on them now, but even when they first came out, the governor wasn't set very good, and they just, a lot of them, when you calibrate a pump, especially an inline pump, it has parameters where the governor has to react so fast, and you measure that with RPMs and a dial indicator at the end of the rack. And most of them, we would get that were just a year or 2 years old. They would complain of low power, and the governors would just be so slow in them. And they had to come from the factory that way. And we had a lot of problems with them.
Do you have a fix that?
Yeah, we would just readjust the pump, and that would take care of it. Then we could make them a little bit zippy. They like that. The newer ones now, they run such high pressure on the injectors that it actually moves the metal in the nozzle tip, and it actually fills in the holes. When you got 15,000 pounds going through that steel, it actually moves the metal and makes the holes smaller. And the other, let's just say a 407 injector, them, after say 10,000 hours, if you clean one up with a brass brush and take a jeweler's loop and look at it, so you can, I need almost 2 of them now. But you look at that hole and it would make it bigger, it would oblong it. But the newer ones, a lot of times, that's why the newer stuff, they want you to replace the injectors at 2,000 hours. They have a lot of problems with the CAPS pumps, like a 305 Case IH and a 285. They will plug the holes on them injectors, will make them smaller, builds too much pressure in the pump and wrecks the pump. And them pumps are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to fix them. So
That's why you want to get rid of an injector. Like after a couple.
yeah, that's why they want you to service them.
Additives won't do that.
No, additives won't fix that one. No.
What about fuel? I read somewhere that like European diesel is different than ours.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure they have their own.
It's a lot better cetane or whatever.
I'm not sure about the cetane rating, but it's possible. The United States, you know, it's supposed to be, I think 48 is the lowest it's supposed to be. So I'm sure. A lot of people used to say that West Coast diesel fuel was better than any of the East Coast diesel fuel, but I don't really know anything about it for sure. You got any more questions?
Do they use cetane boost in like some of these pickups?
Oh yeah, a lot of the additives have cetane booster in it.
Does that help them any or not?
As far as horsepower and stuff, you know, I don't know, I guess you'd have to check it on a dyno. A lot of that stuff I thought in the beginning was snake oil, and, you know, I knew a fuel company's not gonna sell you fuel that's so crappy that they're gonna be fixing everybody's pumps and so dry and stuff, so. But I had a Oliver 88 and I put some biodiesel in it and I let it sit in the shed for a couple of years and I got it out and it started really hard. Of course, I worked on the pump and had her all tuned up and it started hard, and then it dawned on me that the last time I put fuel in it was biofuel. And I dumped, after I got it running, you could pull the throttle wide open and about a minute later it might get up there. So I dumped about 2 cups of diesel fuel or house in there, just let it sit and run in the yard for about 20 minutes. Man, that thing was like brand new. So it'll eat all that stuff out of there. Yeah.
I had one question. Getting back to what you said earlier about like on that 06 stage where you knocked that little glass ball out of the, well, that happened to mine last year, just before we got into the parade. And, well, then I called the dealer the next morning. I changed filters. I thought that was it. That would do it. And he come out and he unscrewed that and knocked that ball out, like you're saying. You said I probably wouldn't have to replace it. You're kind of saying it should be replaced, right?
Yeah, you wanna fix that flex ring in there, because now instead of having anything to catch on, it's hitting them rivets. And that thing flexes back and forth every time you speed it up or slow it down. And after a while, it'll shear them rivets off. And there's no room for them in there, but they're gonna make room. And what it does most of the time is seats the head rotor. And then you really got an expensive fix. Well, it's not the fitting, the pump will have to come off and fix the governor part of the pump. That knocking a ball out, that's just fixing the symptom and getting her running.
Just get you back into the shop.
Yeah, that'll get you back to the shop or through the parade, but I wouldn't run it very long like that. It'll catch up to you. Got any other questions?
Do you work on like the bigger cat, the old 3406Es and stuff? That
No, I don't work on any Caterpillar stuff.
No.
Caterpillar doesn't want you to work on their stuff, so they don't give anybody any break on parts or anything.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Put 6 injectors in, one of the tips split, went right out through the turbo, and they don't want to warranty the turbo now either. It's like, why?
Yeah, they don't want you to work on any of their stuff. They've gotten to the point where it may have a Schweitzer turbo or a Borg Warner turbo on it, but it will have a cat insignia on there. And so even if you're a Borg Warner dealer, they don't want you working on it. John Deere's doing the same thing. Yeah, they're trying to keep it all in-house.
There's some shops around our area that's working on the stuff through Caterpillar certified.
Like a turbo like that?
Bought a Delphi injectors and put in it, and one of them split right down the middle of the tip, right out through the brand new turbo.
Yeah.
It's another Borg Warner turbo on.
Yeah.
What, do you know what kind of RPM a turbo, like,
Turbos,
they're spinning? I mean,
they will spin anywhere from 20 to 40,000 RPM on a stock application. So if you're tractor pulling, look out. They burn the top of your head too when the fins break off and they land on your head. They're still hot.
Depends on all your pipe is. Holy cow.
Yeah. Got any more questions?